Section 4, Part C, General Valuation Concepts. In this video, we review the following concepts: consumer surplus, producer surplus, economic impact of marginal and non-marginal changes, and discount rate. In previous video, we learned about the consumer surplus, which is this area above the price line under the demand curve. This area shows the willingness to pay of consumer for a product or service. We also learn about the producer surplus, the area above the supply curve or marginal cost and under the price. This area shows the amount that a producer gains for producing and providing a good to the consumers. So what if a change happens in the market? And what we see that when the demand and supply curve intercept each other and we set the price. Okay, we have the price constant and we have the quantity of market that we are producing. And over there we can calculate the consumer and producer surplus and like before. But what if there is happen a change in the marginal cost or supply? So as we have here, value of a project to a single firm increases in the firm level supply. So the firm can supply more, and we see this change from marginal cost 1 or supply 1 to supply 2. So we can see that this area of OAB is a gain in the producer surplus holding the consumer surplus constant. And producer now can produce more and increase the production from Q1 to Q2. And the producer surplus gain is area of OAB, and that I show it with this light blue color. Now we'll consider the economic impact of non-marginal changes. Consider large-scale policy or project resulting in non-marginal change in demand or supply, meaning that industry supply or demand curve shifts. So over here we have, let's consider the case in which we have increase in supply. So we know that we show the supply curve at the current status without new policy or change. Over here we have the price and quantity, but as a result of the new policy we reach to the supply curve. Now the price decreases from P0 to P1. Then we have increase as a result of the decrease in the price. We have increase in the quantity of supply, and we can show these terms over here. Then we reach to the new producer and consumer surpluses with the new project and without the new project, and change in the value is when we subtract these two areas from each other. That is, at the first, when we don't have a new policy, this area is a consumer surplus, and this area is a consumer surplus after the policy change, and this area is the new producer surplus. The next case is a decrease in supply. So we have the supply curve over here. This is the price and the quantity and this status. Then new policy or a new change in the market happens. As a result, the supply curve shifts toward the left and decreases. So over here, as a result of this change, the quantity of supply decreased. So we reach, and the price increases. and because of the price increase, the quantity of supply decreased, and we are reaching to this point. We are showing this over here, the supply curve with and without the new policy, and as a result we have the change in the producer consumer surpluses. Change in value is the with minus without. Change in producer surplus is the area of P1 BO minus area of P0 CO, maybe a gain or the lose. And change in consumer surplus is also area of P1 AB minus area P0 AC. I'm showing it over here. At the first we have this surplus, and this is the producer surplus. Then as a change we have a new consumer surplus and new producer surplus, and we can see the loss area is this area P0 P1 BC. We could also have a case in which that we have increase in the demand. So demand curve shift from without policy to the one with the policy. As a result of this increase in the demand, the price increases from P0 to P1, and we have the increase in the quantity demanded. So we have the, like before, with policy and without policy, and consumer surplus and producer surplus, we calculate those, and then change in value. So at the first one, without the new change of policy, this area is the consumer surplus and we have this producer surplus. But when this new policy happened, here is our consumer surplus, and over here is the producer surplus. And changing consumer surplus is area of P1 BE minus area of P0 AC, which might be a gain or loss. We could also have an decrease or shift toward lower level of demand. So if we started by this point and this level of the demand, then when we have a shift in demand curve, as a result we reach to the lower price and this lower level of demand and supply. So we just again look at the with new policy or project and without new policy and project and calculate the consumer surplus and producer surplus, and we calculated the net change in these producer surplus and consumer surpluses. So at the first we have these consumer surplus and over here is the producer surplus, but as a shift in the demand curve, we are reaching to this area for the consumer surplus and producer surplus. So we see that both of them have a decrease as a result of decrease in the or shift in the demand curve. When we do benefit cost analysis, we should also look at the time period of the project or the policy. Value of benefit and cost over time determined by the discount rate. For a typical public investment, discount rate is rate of time preference, which is defined as a percent preferences for present consumption as compared to future consumption. For example, if you let me $100 today, how much would I have to give back to you 1 year from now? Would you take $105? If yes, your rate of time preference is 5%. If you accept 110, then your rate of time preferences is 10%. And the same way, if you accept $125, your rate is 25%. So why are you reluctant to lend money today? Because most people don't want to forego present consumption. Your preferences for present consumption reflected by your rate of time preference. And if one has a rate of time preference equal to 0, then he or she is indifferent between consuming now or in the future. So as rate of time preference increases, one person's preferences for present consumption increases, that is, he or she requires a greater premium to give up the present consumption. Thus, willingness to forego present consumption for future consumption decreases. We could have also, as the rate of time preferences decreases, person preferences for present consumption decreases, and the willingness to forego present consumption for future consumption increases.